across the bar of the saloon keeper who befriended him. Why, I recollect the early days of my writing career, when the small sums of money I earned from the magazines came with tragic irregularity, while at the same time I was staggering along with a growing family, a wife, children, a mother, a nephew, and my Mammy Jenny and her old husband fallen on evil days. There were two places at which I could borrow money: a barber shop and a saloon. The barber charged me 5% per month in advance. That is to say, when I borrowed $100, he handed me $95. The other $5 he retained as advance interest for the first month. And on the second month, I paid him $5 more, and continued to do so each month until I made a 10-strike with the editors and lifted the loan. The other place to which I came in trouble was the saloon. The saloon keeper I had known by sight for a couple of years. I had never spent my money in his saloon, and even when I borrowed from him, I didn't spend any money. Yet never did he refuse me any sum I asked of him. Unfortunately, before I became prosperous, he moved away to another city, and to this day I regret that he is gone. It is the code I have learned. The right thing to do, and the right thing I do right now, did I know where he is, would be to drop in on occasion and spend a few dollars across his bar for old sake's sake and gratitude. This is not to exalt saloon keepers. I have written it to exalt the power of John Barleycorn and to illustrate one more of the myriad ways by which a man is brought in contact with John Barleycorn until in the end he finds he cannot get along without him. But to return to the run of my narrative. Away from the adventure path, up to my ears in study, every moment occupied, I lived oblivious to John Barleycorn's existence. Nobody about me drank. If any had drunk, and had they offered it to me, I surely would have drunk. As it was, when I had spare moments, I spent them playing chess, or going with nice girls who were themselves students, or in riding a bicycle whenever I was fortunate enough to have it out of the pawnbroker's possession. What I am insisting upon all the time is this. In me was not the slightest trace of alcoholic desire. And this despite the long and severe apprenticeship I had served under John Barleycorn. I had come back from the other side of life to be delighted with this Arcadian simplicity of student youths and student maidens. Also, I had found my way into the realm of the mind, and I was intellectually intoxicated. Alas, as I was to learn at a later period, intellectual intoxication, too, has its katzenjammer. Chapter 22. 3 years was the time required to go through the high school. I grew impatient. Also, my schooling was becoming financially impossible. At such rate, I could not last out, and I did greatly want to go to the State University. When I had done a year of high school, I decided to attempt a shortcut. I borrowed the money and paid to enter the senior class of a cramming joint of academy. I was scheduled to graduate right into the university at the end of 4 months, thus saving 2 years. And how I did cram. I had 2 years' new work to do in a third of a year. For 5 weeks I crammed, until simultaneous quadratic equations and chemical formulas fairly oozed from my ears. And then the master of the academy took me aside. He was very sorry, but he was compelled to give me back my tuition fee and to ask me to leave the school. It wasn't a matter of scholarship. I stood well in my classes, and did he graduate me into the university, he was confident that in that institution I would continue to stand well. The trouble was that tongues were gossiping about my case. What? In 4 months accomplished 2 years' work. It would be a scandal. And the universities were becoming severer in their treatment of accredited prep schools. He couldn't afford such a scandal, therefore I must gracefully depart. I did, and I paid back the borrowed money and gritted my teeth and started to cram by myself. There were 3 months yet before the university entrance examinations. Without laboratories, without coaching, sitting in my bedroom, I proceeded to compress that 2 years' work into 3 months and to keep reviewed on the previous year's work. 19 hours a day I studied. For 3 months I kept this pace, only breaking it on several occasions. My body grew weary. My mind grew weary, but I stayed with it. My eyes grew weary and began to twitch, but they did not break down. Perhaps, toward the last, I got a bit dotty. I know that at that time I was confident I had discovered the formula for squaring the circle. But I resolutely deferred the working of it out until after the examinations. Then I would show them. Came the several days of the examinations, during which time I scarcely closed my eyes in sleep, devoting every moment to cramming and reviewing. And when I turned in my last examination paper, I was in full possession of a splendid case of brain fag. I didn't want to see a book. I didn't want to think or to lay eyes on anybody who was liable to think. There was but one prescription for such a condition, and I gave it to myself: the adventure path. I didn't wait to learn the result of my examinations. I stowed a roll of blankets and some cold food into a borrowed Whitehall boat and set sail. Out of the Oakland estuary I drifted on the last of the early morning ebb, caught the first of the flood-up bay, and raced along with a spanking breeze. San Pablo Bay was smoking, and the Carquinez Straits off the Selby smelter were smoking too, as I picked up ahead and left astern the old landmarks I had first learned with Nelson in the unreefed Reindeer. Benicia showed before me. I opened the bight of Turner's shipyard, rounded the Solano wharf, and surged along abreast of the patch of tools and the clustering fishermen's arks where in the old days I had lived and drunk deep. And right here something happened to me, the gravity of which I never dreamed for many a long year to come. I had had no intention